A man walks into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom and opens his case with 6 words no one expects. No excuses, no story, no hesitation. He simply declares he's guilty. But the truth behind those words is about to unravel into one of the most emotional cases this courtroom has ever heard. Because guilt isn't always simple. In a place built on rules, fines, and facts, a rare kind of honesty changes everything. This case begins with a man who does not argue, negotiate, or fight for loopholes. Instead, he offers the one thing most people hide: pure accountability. But behind that bold confession lies a life spinning out of control, a family on the edge, and a decision made under pressure so crushing that even the strongest people would break. Judge Caprio has encountered thousands of stories, some heartbreaking, some outrageous, some unforgettable. Yet this one strikes a different chord because it challenges the deepest question anyone can face: how far should a person go to protect the people they love? If you've ever carried a burden alone, this story will hit home. Marcus Hale steps forward with a quiet confidence that doesn't match the exhaustion written deep in his posture. His jacket is worn, sleeves slightly frayed, the kind that holds years of labor rather than months of fashion. Every word he speaks comes out steady, almost too steady, like he has practiced this moment 100 times in his mind. When he says he's guilty, he speaks with the conviction of a man prepared for the consequences. But beneath that calm tone rests something heavy, an unseen storm pressing against the edges of his voice. Judge Frank Caprio listens carefully, giving Marcus the same respect he gives everyone who enters his courtroom. Marcus stands alone, no lawyer, no family member, no friend to lean on. Just a man and the truth he insists on carrying without help. And in that silence, something feels off. No one chooses a heavy punishment without a reason. So why is Marcus so ready to accept blame? The charge is simple on paper: multiple parking violations, unpaid tickets, and a summons ignored for months. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. Yet Marcus reacts as though these minor infractions are the final chapter of a much larger story. He doesn't flinch, doesn't challenge a single detail. It's almost unsettling how he accepts every word as if waiting for a sentence he believes he deserves. The voiceover asks a question that lingers like haze: what pushes a man to embrace punishment instead of fighting for mercy? Marcus doesn't answer it, but his silence says enough. Something is wrong, deeply wrong. He admits he parked illegally near a hospital, multiple times, acknowledges he knew the rules, and accepts full responsibility. But the way he phrases it is strange. He talks not as someone careless, but as someone cornered. He repeats that he doesn't want to waste the court's time, almost like time itself is something he cannot afford. Even the most honest people usually add context, yet Marcus avoids explanation like it's a wound he refuses to reopen. Judge Caprio tries to understand the situation, but Marcus keeps redirecting every question back to the same point: I'm guilty, it was my choice. Those words feel rehearsed, not in a deceptive way, but in the way someone tries to shield others by absorbing all the damage themselves. There is loyalty in that kind of responsibility, but also fear of what telling the full truth might cause. In the gallery, people shift in their seats. The air thickens with curiosity and concern. Marcus never raises his voice, never pleads, never protests. Instead, he speaks with a tone so calm it almost hides the desperation underneath. And in that quiet tension, something remarkable happens. The room begins to sense that this isn't just about fines or tickets. This is a man carrying more than his own mistakes. Before continuing, the narrator pauses with an invitation: drop a comment below if you've ever blamed yourself just to protect someone else. Because Marcus's story is about to reveal exactly that kind of sacrifice. Marcus explains that every violation happened during late-night visits, that he chose to break the rules knowingly, and that he doesn't expect sympathy or understanding. But there's an ache in his voice, the kind that only appears when someone is holding back a truth that could change everything. The judge leans forward slightly, sensing the hidden weight behind Marcus's confession. And just when the room believes Marcus has said everything he intends to say, Judge Caprio asks a single question that changes Marcus's expression for the first time. A question that reaches the very heart of what he's trying to hide. Judge Frank Caprio's gentle question breaks through Marcus Hale's practiced calm: who were you visiting at the hospital? For the first time, Marcus hesitates. The silence stretches, heavy and uncertain. His voice, once steady, now trembles at the edges as he answers with only 2 words: my daughter. The courtroom shifts. Conversations quiet. Breath pauses. A layer of pain enters Marcus's tone, a pain that does not belong to a man who parked carelessly, but to a father carrying a truth too big to hold alone. He tries to maintain composure, but honesty spills out, piece by piece, like a dam beginning to crack. He admits he spent months in and out of that hospital, often in the darkest hours of the night, sometimes staying until dawn. Every violation lined up with nights when fear ruled over logic. Judge Caprio listens with compassion, but Marcus remains hesitant, as if the truth itself is a dangerous weight. When asked what his daughter is facing, Marcus's eyes lower. He doesn't describe illness with medical terms or dramatic details. Instead, he offers something far more emotional. He explains that she has been fighting a condition that grows more unpredictable each day, a condition that leaves her struggling to breathe, to stay conscious, to remain stable. Marcus doesn't say the name, but the pain in his voice paints a full picture. What kind of father wouldn't break a parking rule to get to his suffering child faster? The voiceover lets the question hang, a quiet echo in the mind. Yet, as Marcus speaks, something else emerges, another layer beneath the pain. He had been avoiding the court not out of disrespect, but out of fear that addressing these tickets would create another problem he couldn't afford. He has already sold tools, taken extra shifts, and cut every possible expense to pay for treatment. He admits the tickets slipped through the cracks, but only because everything else in life was cracking around him. Judge Caprio asks Marcus if he brought any documentation or proof. Marcus reaches into his pocket and unfolds a small stack of worn papers, hospital confirmations, treatment schedules, and a note from a specialist explaining the severity of the child's condition. The papers shake in his hands, not from nervousness, but from exhaustion. These documents tell a story Marcus himself struggles to speak aloud. The narrator pauses, like this video if you believe some rules should bend when a child's life is on the line. The judge reads the documents slowly. Every detail adds weight to the truth that Marcus tried so hard to cover with short answers and quiet guilt. The late-night admissions, the missed work, the bills multiplying faster than paychecks, the fear that each day could bring news no parent should ever hear. Marcus explains his routine, finishing the night shift at the warehouse, rushing home to shower, then driving straight to the hospital when the phone rang with updates about his daughter's condition. Sometimes he slept in the waiting room. Sometimes he didn't sleep at all. And every time he parked, he told himself he would deal with the consequences later, because later was the only time he had left. He confesses that he kept repeating the same line in his head, as long as she's breathing, I'll handle everything else. But now that everything else is standing in front of him, demanding answers, he fears he has failed both as a father and as a citizen. The courtroom sits in complete silence as Marcus describes the night that broke him. He recalls racing to the hospital at 2 a.m. after receiving a call from a nurse telling him his daughter was struggling again. He parked anywhere he could, sprinting inside without a second thought. When he held her hand, she whispered, "Daddy, don't leave me." That moment became the reason he accepted every ticket, every fine, every late notice without complaint. Nothing mattered more than being there when she opened her eyes. Before the chapter ends, the narrator poses a question meant to linger. How much pressure can a single heart endure before I finally breaks? Judge Caprio studies Marcus with deep empathy, preparing to respond. But just before he speaks, Marcus reveals something no one expected, a confession that lifts the entire story into a new realm of heartbreak. But what happened next left the entire courtroom speechless. Marcus Hale takes a slow breath, as if gathering the last bit of strength left inside him. When he finally speaks, his voice cracks, not from fear of punishment, but from the weight of a truth he has carried alone for far too long. He confesses that the hospital visits, the sleepless nights, the unpaid tickets, and the overwhelming exhaustion are not the full story. The real breaking point came weeks earlier, on a night that changed everything. He explains that his daughter, Lily, had reached a stage where her condition became dangerously unpredictable. Doctors warned him that her stability could shift in minutes. But Marcus didn't share that reality with anyone outside the hospital walls. He didn't want pity. He didn't want handouts. He wanted strength. Strength he tried to force into existence, even when life kept tearing it from his hands. Then he reveals the moment everything collapsed. One night, after leaving the hospital, he found out his overtime shift had been cut. It was the last bit of income keeping him afloat. Without it, he fell behind on medical supplies, rent, and even basic groceries. He admits that he skipped meals, just so Lily could have hers. He stopped turning on the heat in the winter to save on bills. He even considered selling his car, the same car that allowed him to rush to her side at any moment. As he speaks, his words drip with guilt, not because he thinks he made the wrong choices, but because he fears he didn't do enough. The narrator poses a haunting question: how much can a single parent give before the world demands even more? Marcus continues. He says the night he received the letter from the court, the one summoning him for unpaid tickets, he sat alone at his kitchen table. He stared at the envelope for hours, unable to open it. The weight of responsibility became suffocating. He feared that attending court meant missing one of Lily's unpredictable episodes. He feared leaving her side for even a moment. So he avoided the letter, choosing his daughter's life over legal obligations. And then comes the confession that deepens the entire room's breath. Marcus was not only taking care of Lily, he was doing it entirely alone. Lily's mother had left months earlier, unable to cope with the constant hospital stays, the nights filled with alarms, and the financial strain that seemed to grow heavier every day. She walked out with the words, "I can't live like this," leaving Marcus to face a storm that could break even the strongest souls. Judge Caprio listens with compassion, but before he can speak, Marcus adds something more, a truth far more painful. On the night of his biggest breakdown, when he felt he had nothing left to give, Lily looked at him with tired eyes and asked, "Daddy, am I a burden?" That question shattered him. It wasn't the hospital bills or the lost income or the never-ending fear. It was the idea that his daughter believed for even 1 second that she was anything less than his entire world. The narrator pauses, letting the weight of those words echo. Hit that subscribe button if stories like this remind you how much unseen battles people carry every day. Marcus explains that he has been trying to protect Lily from the truth, that the world outside the hospital room was falling apart. He didn't want her to feel responsible for the chaos surrounding them, so he carried everything alone: the debt, the fear, the heartbreak, the court summons, and the guilt that never seemed to loosen its grip. He say that when he walked into Judge Caprio's courtroom today, he came prepared to face whatever came his way. Not because he believed he deserved punishment, but because he believed accountability might buy him a little peace, a moment where he could stop pretending everything was fine. His guilt wasn't about the tickets, it was about all the ways he felt he had failed as a father, even when he was giving everything he had. The courtroom sits on edge, waiting to hear how Judge Caprio will respond to a man carrying such an overwhelming burden. Marcus wipes the corner of his eye but tries to remain composed. He doesn't want sympathy, he doesn't want special treatment, he just wants to breathe again, even for a moment. Yet before Judge Caprio can deliver his response, something unexpected happens at the back of the courtroom. A quiet voice interrupts the tension with a single word, one that shifts the direction of everything. But what happened next left the entire courtroom speechless. The quiet voice from the back of the courtroom belongs to someone no one expected to be there, a nurse from the pediatric wing. She steps forward, asking Judge Caprio for permission to speak. Her tone carries the calm authority of someone who has spent countless nights beside the sick and the suffering. The courtroom falls into an even deeper silence as she explains how she knows Marcus Hale. She introduces herself simply as Nurse Evelyn and explains that she works the overnight shift in the same unit where Lily is treated. She tells Judge Caprio that she came only because she learned Marcus had a court date today, and something inside her told her he shouldn't face it alone. The judge nods, inviting her to speak freely. What follows turns every listener's heart. Nurse Evelyn explains that Marcus is more than a concerned father. He is the kind of parent who refuses to leave his child even when exhaustion pulls at him like gravity. She says the staff often find him sitting quietly by Lily's bed long after visiting hours, gently holding her hand, whispering stories to keep her calm during the worst episodes. She describes the night Lily had a severe crisis, and Marcus broke every rule to get to her. Not out of defiance, but out of love so fierce it pushed him past limits most people would never dare cross. She explains that Marcus often falls asleep in the hallway because he doesn't want to disturb other families, that he brings his own blankets so the hospital doesn't have to provide one, that he never complains, never asks for help, and always puts Lily first, even if it means sacrificing his own well-being. The voiceover pauses over a question meant for the audience, If you saw a man giving everything he has for the person he loves most, would you ever call that man irresponsible? Nurse Evelyn adds that Marcus once showed up to the hospital drenched in rain because his car wouldn't start. Instead of calling for assistance or missing a moment with Lily, he walked the entire way. Hours in the storm, freezing, determined. She recalls how his shoes soaked hospital floors as he rushed into the unit, breathless but relieved just to be near his daughter. The room slowly fills with emotion. People shift, swallow, and hold back tears as the story unfolds, because this is not a man running from responsibility. This is a father running toward it. Judge Caprio listens with profound respect. His expression softens, not out of pity, but out of admiration for the strength sitting before him. When Nurse Evelyn finishes, Marcus tries to speak, but the judge raises a hand gently, signaling that it's his turn. Then the judge delivers words that feel like a moral lightning bolt through the room. He tells Marcus that guilt is not always a measure of wrongdoing. Sometimes it is a sign of the love someone carries, a love so heavy that it bends a person's back without breaking their spirit. He explains that the law exists to guide people, not punish the good-hearted for choosing compassion over perfection. He says the world would be a kinder place if more people cared the way Marcus does. And then, with his steady voice, he tells Marcus that no father should ever stand alone while trying to save his child. The narrator pauses, reminding viewers, drop a comment below if you believe compassion is the strongest form of justice. Judge Caprio continues, explaining that rules matter, but humanity matters more. He acknowledges Marcus's sacrifices, his sleepless nights, his financial struggles, and his unwavering devotion. He tells him that the court sees not a careless man, but a devoted father fighting an unimaginable battle. Marcus's shoulders tremble as the weight he has carried begins to lighten, even if only a little. The judge assures him that the legal system does not exist to punish acts of love, and that today, in this courtroom, compassion will guide every decision. But before Judge Caprio announces his final ruling, something unexpected happens. A message arrives from someone no one imagined would speak, someone whose words carry the power to change everything in ways the courtroom never anticipated. But what happened next left the entire courtroom speechless. A bailiff steps forward and quietly hands Judge Frank Caprio a folded note. The courtroom watches in complete stillness as the judge opens it. His eyebrows lift, not in confusion, but in a kind of gentle surprise. He looks toward the gallery, then toward Marcus, and finally reads the message aloud. It is from Lily's doctor. The message explains that the doctor couldn't leave the hospital floor, but felt compelled to speak after learning Marcus was in court. The doctor describes Lily as a fighter with a father who refuses to let her battle alone. He writes that every time Lily wakes up frightened, Marcus is the one she calls for. He writes that Marcus's presence often stabilizes her faster than any medicine. And then, in simple, powerful words, he adds, "This father has saved his daughter's life more times than any of us can count." The courtroom breathes out as if those words cracked open the emotional tension filling the air. Marcus stands frozen, hands trembling at his sides. He doesn't know whether to cry, speak, or crumble. He has carried everything alone for so long that hearing another human validate his pain feels like a shock to the soul. Judge Caprio folds the note slowly. He looks at Marcus with a mix of compassion and admiration, then delivers the moment that will turn this case into one of the most unforgettable stories ever told in his courtroom. He begins by telling Marcus that guilt, in its purest form, is not about fines, laws, or broken rules. It's about the weight people place on themselves when they feel they're not doing enough. He says Marcus has been carrying a mountain, but mountains are not meant to be carried alone. Then the judge takes a breath and announces his ruling. The fines are dismissed. Every ticket, every charge, gone. A ripple passes through the courtroom. Some people gasp, others cry. Marcus's knees buckle slightly as relief floods his body like warmth after a long, cold night. But Judge Caprio isn't finished. He tells Marcus that no parent facing such hardship should ever feel unsupported. He invites Marcus to step closer. The judge opens a small drawer and reveals an envelope, one filled with contributions collected quietly by the staff and volunteers who learned about Marcus's struggles. The judge explains that they wanted to help cover meals, gas, and missed work, so Marcus can stay by Lily's side without fear of falling further behind. Marcus is stunned. His voice breaks as he tries to thank the court, but words keep dissolving into emotion. For years he believed he had to bear everything without sharing his pain. Now, for the first time, a community stands behind him. The narrator pauses, offering a moment for the audience to take it in. Hit that subscribe button if you believe compassion can change a life in seconds. But the miracle moment doesn't end there. As Marcus wipes his eyes, Nurse Evelyn rises again. She explains that a local foundation has heard about Lily's case and wants to cover part of her treatment costs. It isn't a full solution, but it's enough to lift the crushing financial pressure Marcus has been drowning under. Marcus covers his face with both hands, overwhelmed. This is a man who came into court expecting punishment. Instead, he found mercy. He found support. He found hope. The judge closes with one final message to Marcus, one that strikes deep at the heart of every parent listening. He tells him that if Lily ever asks again whether she's a burden, Marcus can now answer with absolute certainty. No child is ever a burden when love leads the way. The courtroom erupts in quiet tears and stunned admiration. Marcus takes a shaky breath, gathering himself, knowing that when he returns to Lily later, he will tell her about the kindness that saved them both today. But before Marcus leaves, the judge adds a final gentle reminder. You're a good father, don't forget that. But what happened next left the entire courtroom speechless. In the end, Marcus Hale walks out of Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom carrying something far more valuable than dismissed fines or financial help. He carries hope, the kind he hasn't felt in years. Hope that he is not fighting this battle alone. Hope that compassion still exists in a world that often moves too fast to notice a struggling parent. And hope that his daughter, Lily, will one day look back and understand that her father never gave up on her, not for a single moment. Stories like this remind us that behind every case, every summons, and every mistake, there is a human being, carrying a story we may never hear unless someone chooses to listen. Marcus walked into court expecting consequences. Instead, he was met with kindness, understanding, and a community willing to help a father hold on a little longer. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on the bell, and share this video so more people can experience the power of compassion.